Welcome to the Cozy Little Library. Today with your Clean Reads Book Buddy. The Red, White, and June Revolutionary America Readathon is almost here. I'm so very excited. And today I've gathered all of your Readathon co-hosts. Each quickly sharing our favorite fiction and non-fiction book recs. Think of this as your Readathon starter pack. Let's hear from our host.
I'm Cheryl from Candlewick Library, and Shannon wanted us to share a favorite nonfiction or fiction book about the American Revolutionary time period or that took place there. And there were so many that I thought about sharing, but I decided to go with one that was very impactful for me as a child before I even read it. And that's going to sound strange, but that is because there is a movie about this book. This is Johnny Tremain. This is by Esther Forbes. And I loved the movie of Johnny Tremain that Disney put out so much that sometimes I would watch it multiple times in a year and not just in July. I have to be completely honest, and I had a crush on both of the main boys in it. But I really loved the story and I was caught up in it and just couldn't help but think that if I had lived in that time period, I would have wanted to be a part of the Sons of Liberty as much as I could have as a girl. When I became an adult is when I learned that there was a book, that the movie was based on a book. I immediately had to read it and it did not disappoint. It is very different than the movie, and yet I still loved it so much. It is such a good story of bravery and what Johnny learns as he goes along, because I think that a lot of times we do get caught up in the things that are going on that we believe in. We can be headstrong about it. And so I think you see that a little bit with Johnny, but then you also see the life lessons he learns, and you learn about this time period and what was happening and about the people involved as you read. It's a really fun story. I highly recommend it.
I'm really excited to be bringing two recommendations to you for the Red, White, and June Readathon. One of them is fiction, one of them is nonfiction, but they are both middle grade. And I'm doing this to just show that you can keep it simple. You don't have to go too complicated. So the first book is a Dear America book, and it is The Winter of Red Snow by Christina Gregory. And you have the diary of Abigail Jane Stewart. So she is a young girl who is living at Valley Forge in 1777. There are so many soldiers that have shown up with George Washington. They are dying of the cold, not the war at this point. They don't have shoes. They don't have hardly any food. It's very gritty when it's talking about what happens with frostbite and all that. So I would say that if you have a younger reader and you're actually recommending this book to a child that's in elementary school, maybe start with the Felicity series first, which is a favorite of mine, but I figured other friends on here might talk about that series. But I think this book does such a great job of showing the sacrifices that women and young girls and the children, male or female, left behind, the people that were trying to run their daily lives at Valley Forge, because a lot of their resources were being taken when their families already sometimes were not doing very well. It shows a little picture of George and Martha Washington and how they worked as a couple from this fictional point of view, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really educational, good read. Then the other one that I have to recommend, it is actually a graphic novel, and I'm not really a big graphic novel person, but I really love this one. So it's from Graphic Library is who publishes this, and it's just entitled The Boston Tea Party. The author is Matt Doder, and the illustrator is Charles Barnett III. And what I loved about this graphic novel, it had great pictures and all that, but it did such a wonderful job of kind of showing why this was such a big deal, why like the taxation was such a problem, and that why, they dumped the tea out because the governor of Massachusetts was actually a loyalist, and he was going to let them unpack the tea because it wasn't when you bought it that the tax necessarily happened. It was when it was unloaded on America. So I thought it did such a great job of explaining that in a kid's book, that the taxation was just a bigger issue than don't drink tea, which would be very hard for me as a tea lover. But it was really it was the lack of a voice. And I think this did, in a short little graphic novel, such a great job of doing that. So I recommend both of these, and I hope you guys enjoy learning more about the Revolutionary War era.
Hello, my name is Anne, and my channel is In Search of Wonder, and I am excited to recommend to you some revolutionary themed books. First of all, for nonfiction, I have a bit of a strange recommendation, but stick with me. This is a guidebook to Colonial Williamsburg. Williamsburg is a town in Virginia, if you are unfamiliar with it, that has maintained its historical accuracy and architecture as much as is possible. They are always doing archaeological digs and discovering more about the town of Williamsburg and recreating it as it looked in the colonial era. And this book goes through all of the houses and buildings that you can find there or that used to be there, what they know about it, and gives you a little history of the people who lived there and what they were known for and the roles that they played and the things that they accomplished during that time period in American history. And actual Williamsburg is a wonderful place to go and visit and to learn about the Revolutionary time period. If you are anywhere near it ever, you should definitely go and see it. I haven't actually read a great deal of nonfiction about the Revolutionary era, but I am surrounded by living history everywhere around me, not only in Colonial Williamsburg, which is just a few hours away from me, and to which a few years ago, my family, we actually had annual passes for multiple years in a row, and so we've explored it quite thoroughly. There's also nearby Yorktown and Jamestown that have a great deal of colonial and Revolutionary era history as well. Not to mention, even closer to me, we have, of course, the city of Washington, D.C. that I live near, and we have George Washington's home, Mount Vernon, as well as his boyhood home out the other direction away from me. Lots of other colonial era history that I am surrounded by and that I regularly get to enjoy and partake in. So I'm surrounded by living history. So I haven't actually read a great deal of nonfiction about that time period, but I do recommend immersing yourself in the actual history of the day. If you live in the East Coast anywhere, come and check out the colonial era history and the Revolutionary history that we just are abounding with around here. As for fiction recommendations, I have a series by an indie author that I really think you should check out. Amber Lynn Perry is the author, and she wrote these books 5 to 10 years ago or so. She hasn't written anything since then, to my knowledge. I believe that she began to raise a family and so hasn't had time to write as much since then. But that series, her debut series, was phenomenal in my opinion. And it was set in Boston during the Revolutionary era, just before the Revolutionary War and the events leading up to it, and then during the Revolutionary War. And each book features a female main character and a love interest, so there's romance involved too. And it deals very much with the theological and spiritual ramifications of the Revolutionary War and the characters who were involved in that war on both sides, the American side and the British side, the things that they struggled with and the ideas that they struggled with. And so it's much more than just historical romance novels. There's a lot of depth to it, and the writing is beautiful. Not everyone loves writing that features carefully chosen words that are beautiful just because it's beautiful, but I love that kind of writing. It's very lyrical and adds to the drama and the intensity of the story that the author is telling. So I personally love the writing in this series. And if you like that kind of writing, slightly more literary, a little more lyrical, leaning towards the poetic almost, with serious topics, but in the end, a happily ever after romance story where everything ends well, at least in that book, then you will enjoy this series. There are 5 books in this series and then 1 or 2 novellas that go along with this series, and it's called Daughters of His Kingdom. And it is Christian fiction by an indie author, and I think you would love it, and I think you should check it out.
Hey y'all, it's Bethany here from Bethany Brings Books. I am super excited to be part of this collaboration with Olde American Spirit and all of my other co-hosts for the Red, White, and June Readathon. Very quickly, I just want to chat about two of my favorite Revolutionary era books. So first of all, we're going to chat about a nonfiction book. Nonfiction Revolutionary book experience is not as wide as my fictional. But I am reading multiple nonfiction revolutionary books right now, but a lot of them are very thick and I have not finished. So even though there's some that I know I'm going to really like, I don't want to use them for this recommendation. But here's one that I discovered from my library last year, and it is called The Signers, the 56 Stories Behind the Declaration of Independence. And this was actually in the children's section at my library, but it is sort of like a coffee table book, but it has each person who signed the Declaration of Independence. So it's very interesting. So it takes each colony, like Virginia, and then it gives you some information about Virginia, and it tells you, like right here, a list of all the signers of the Declaration of Independence who were from Virginia, how old they were when they signed it, their birth date, who they married, their children, their death date. So that's just very fascinating to me. Each page tells you their name and tells you about them. So I love this because it gives you a lot of information about men that we've never heard of, like men who were not as famous as John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. The other founding fathers who are so well known, these are the men who signed it whose names are not well known and who are kind of forgotten in history. So I checked this out from my library last year and I did not get to finish it, so I just ordered me a copy. I'm so excited to add this to my shelf, and this year I am finishing it. This is on my TBR to completely finish this, but I think this is a great introduction to the Revolutionary time period if you don't want to get into something super heavy or deep scholarly. If you feel intimidated by a lot of the nonfiction that's out there, this is great. So Richard Stockton, that's someone I've never heard about. And then you've got your Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, you know, your more well-known ones. I highly recommend this. Now, this book, I've been waiting all year. I've been waiting all year to reread this. It will be my third time reading this book, and this is one of the best books I've ever read. It's probably right now my favorite book ever. Literally since I finished reading this book last year, have thought about this book with anticipation for reading it again this year. There's no other book that I can think of that I actually would say that about, that I think about all year long and have been anticipating rereading it all year long. Like, it is a phenomenal book. A Girl Called Samson by Amy Harmon. I even wrote myself a note in the front of it last year because of how much I loved this book. This book, I don't know, something in this book just, I can't put into words. Like, I really cannot put into words why or how much I love this. It just inspires such a tremendous swell of patriotism in me when I read it. It is such a fantastic book. It is a secular fictional account of the story of Deborah Sampson. And Deborah Sampson was a woman who went off to war dressed as a man, and she lived for years afterwards, and she got married. Shared about her experience years later. So this is a fictionalized account. The author did take liberties with the story, with some key elements of the story. However, patriotism in this is the heart of the story for me. It has a romance, which I like, but more than that, the story that the patriotism that this story inspired in me is so beautiful. Like, this story just made me think so deeply about all that we have as our freedom as Americans, and all that so many people who went before us, all they gave up for us to have freedom. Just how amazing, like how amazingly blessed we are. It's just a absolutely phenomenal story. I can't chat about it enough here. I will chat about it more in a video later on. I'm going to be making my own video over on my channel, chatting about what I'm wanting to read for the readathon. and this is definitely going to be on it. I plan to reread this book every year because I love it that much. It is so amazing. So anyway, guys, I hope y'all are inspired by these books. I can't wait to see what my co-hosts, which books they chat about. Anyway, guys, I hope y'all have a great time with this reading challenge, and y'all check out these books.
Hello, my name is Taylor. My channel name is Tales and Treats with Tay, and I'm so excited to be a part of this collaboration to share American Revolutionary Era books. However, I do have to be pretty honest that this is an era in American history that I have not read very much of. In fact, I could only find one in my reading history that I have actually read as an adult. I did grow up watching the Felicity movie. I read the Felicity American Girl books, but as an adult, I just have one. So I am very much looking forward to watching this video myself for some recommendations. So the one book I have for you is the first book in one of my favorite Christian fiction series. It's very popular, When the Day Comes by Gabriel Meyer. If you haven't seen this on BookTube, I'll be very surprised because this has been a very hyped book, and I think it is definitely deserving of the hype. This is a dual timeline story about a young woman who lives two lives at the same time. She lives in one time period, wakes up in the other time period, goes to sleep, goes back and forth. So she lives kind of a 2-for-1 life. And one of the lives in this story is set in 1774 in colonial Williamsburg. So Libby is our main protagonist, and she is a public printer for the House of Burgesses and the royal governor. She's trying to provide for her family and support the Patriot cause. So it's a very difficult time to live in, to test your loyalties, and she does meet some very influential people. It's really cool to read about. It's some of my favorite parts of this book. But yeah, this is a ride, and it's very heavy though. It's not your fluffy Christian fiction. There are some very difficult topics. There are some things that would not be for every reader, so if you're interested in learning more about that, definitely look at content reviews for this. But I can definitely say this series is unlike anything I have ever read. This is my second favorite book in the series, but I just loved the 1774 time period the best. It was so fascinating to me reading about that time in history in colonial Williamsburg. It's one of my places that Williamsburg now is one of the places that I really want to go to one day because it's just so full of history, and Gabriel did such a good job researching this book and all her others in the series. But yeah, this is what I would recommend. Bye!
Hi there, my name is Morgan and my channel is Morgan's Endless Bookshelf, where I talk about Christian fiction and some classics as well. My main genres that I read are Christian fantasy, Christian historical fiction, and Christian romantic suspense. I think that's all my main genres anyway. I've got two books that I wanted to talk to you about. One that is a Christian fiction and one that is a secular fiction, and they're both middle grade because I actually haven't read a whole bunch of Revolutionary Era books, but these two I absolutely love. So the first one that I want to talk about is, of course, the Felicity Merriman series from American Girl, because I absolutely adore Felicity as a character. I love the world that her books build and how it portrays the Revolutionary Era. And I also love her doll, but that's not the point. But I just wanted to recommend this series. All of them were 5 stars, I believe, all 6 of the books. And then the other one that I wanted to recommend is The Voice of the Revolution and the Key, and then the next... That's not the name of the next book. They changed it, I think, after they printed this book. I don't believe that's the name of the next book. Either way, this series is The Amazing Tales of Max and Liz / The Epic Order of the Seven. Yeah. It's one series, but like the first... it's confusing. But the important part is, after going through all of biblical history, pretty much, going up to the end of Acts, and I think they covered Revelation too. But like, not the actual events of Revelation, but as John was given the vision of Revelation, if that makes sense. The series skips forward to go to the Revolutionary Era. And this series is all about these 7 animals that God has blessed with immortality in order to be his agents on the earth affecting change. And if that sounds like a wild premise for a book, you are correct. It is. But I absolutely adore this series. It is precious and wonderful. And this book especially is very patriotic. The Revolutionary era stories are, and I highly recommend this series in general, but especially the Revolutionary era books. I may actually reread these in June for our readathon. So, I hope you check one or both of those series out. Hopefully you'll enjoy them.
Shannon here. Wow, my friends have shared such great book recommendations. I'm going to recommend a few quick favorites that were not mentioned for fiction, middle grade. I suggest Annie Henry, Adventures in the American Revolution. This is a bind-up. There are actually 4 books in the series, or you can read them individually. You can see how short these are. I love this fictional account of the life of Patrick Henry through the eyes of his daughter. Annie Henry is full of energy, and somehow she always seems to find herself in the middle of all the excitement. Following the footsteps of her father, Annie faces the American Revolution with courage and a commitment to fighting for liberty in any way she can. What I found out was that there is so much I did not know about Patrick Henry. I did not realize the faith that he had, and I didn't realize all of those personal things that he was also dealing with on the side, and the way that he dealt with that was unusual compared to everybody else of the era, and I thought it was precious. Favorite fictional, more adult level reading is the Harbor of Spies series by Megan Soja. Harbor of Spies. It's a 3-book series right now. This is actually book number 2, but you are right there going chronologically through the events. This series is full of incredible faith. I was highlighting and tabbing throughout every single one of the books in this series. Highly recommend. Nonfiction, I discovered the American Revolution series by Hourly History. I will be talking more about the entire series in the next video for someone who just wants an overview of the era in the shortest, most comprehensive, easy to understand way. It's on Kindle Unlimited. Pretty impressed with what they covered, how comprehensive it was, and it goes all the way to the presidency of George Washington. It's called Hourly History. You're able to read in under an hour. For a more nonfiction middle grade, look at this beautiful, beautiful brand new release. It's called Heroes of 1776, the story of the Declaration of Independence. Janie Nitz. Oh my goodness, the illustrations in this book is just incredible. Dive into the story of the Declaration of Independence and learn about the men, women, and children who risked all they had to create a new nation forged in liberty. Look how gorgeous this is. Those are the end papers. She talks about some people that I'd never heard about before. As you turn these pages, we hope you see the promise of liberty our nation holds for you and the courage it takes to defend it. Beautiful. I think it's a legacy piece. Who's excited?
I'm so excited.
If you are, drop me a USA flag in the comments. If you haven't grabbed your readathon graphic, I have it linked for you in the description box below. My bigger book recommendations list for this readathon with all my favorites is coming up next, so don't miss it. Until next time.